Mr. Carl Hopkins.
Evening. My name is Carl Hopkins. I'm a pilot and an airplane owner here with my plane based at the field. Been here for about 3.5 years. And I realize there's probably nothing the Commission can do about the subject that I'm to discuss, but I thought I would at least bring it to your attention. I've, like I said, been over at Atlantic, prior Mercury, then Atlantic for approximately 3.5 years. From the time I got there, I was paying $100 a month for a tie-down outside, and which seemed to be reasonable for the area. 2 months ago, 6 weeks ago, I received a note in the mail that said, finally, after 3 years, I had a permanent tie-down spot. They had finally, after the ramp had been redone and everything, had assigned permanent spots. And oh, by the way, your new rent's $250 a month. Now, I immediately assumed that this was an error. After all, they had my Cherokee 180 listed on their form letter as a Cessna 172. So I figured, well, you just made a mistake and inadvertently charged me the twin rate. So immediately, I got that actually on the weekend. Monday I called over to Atlantic, asked for Roger. He was busy. Explained to the woman who answered what the situation was, and she assured me he'd call me right back. 4 phone calls and 1 trip over there later, during which every time Roger was unavailable and did not return phone calls, I finally got from the folks at the front desk that yes, the $250 a month was the new rate being charged for some people. Those who didn't buy enough fuel from Atlantic were charged $250 a month instead of $100. She was unable to tell me what enough fuel was, but it might be negotiated with Roger, assuming he was ever available. That's been 6 weeks. I, after that, called over and spoke with Hazel, and she called and talked to Roger and basically came up with, yes, that's the answer. If you don't buy enough fuel, although it's not certain what enough is, then you end up paying $250 a month. And she did tell me that out of common courtesy, she did ask Roger, out of common courtesy, to return my calls. He never has. And so 4 of us on the very first day moved over to Stratman, which is 110 versus Signature at 140. I took the opportunity to post this information on a forum, a Cherokee Pilots Association forum that has a tremendous amount of good information for us Cherokee pilots or Piper pilots. And although there are 4,000 members, there are about 200 to 300 who log on every day or so. The highest rate anybody was ever able to report for tie-down was $170 a month, and I think that was at Long Beach. There was one at $125, and everything else was under $100. So it looks as though, in addition to being more than double the other people on the field, and of course that's 8 times what it is in the airports around us, Santa Maria, Santa Ynez, Santa Paula, Camarillo, etc. They also found nobody was ever heard of a situation where your tie-down fee was based on how much fuel you bought. They found frequently, as we had here, that you get, if you're a tie-down customer, you get a small discount on the fuel, a quarter to 50 cents a gallon less than the transient price. But nobody had heard of the other. Nevertheless, that's the situation. I've moved right over here. I'm quite happy over here, actually. But I thought I would let you know that there were 4 of us that moved the first day. I don't know how many other people have moved. I've driven by a number of times or taxied by, and certainly seemed like an awful lot of empty spots. But, sometimes that may be just people flying away. And certainly if at some point in time there's an opportunity to increase Atlantic's rent, 250% increase sounds reasonable to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And any other requests to speak? Well, seeing none, we will move on to the consent agenda. I think
Can I say one comment
the director has something to add.
I'm sorry that Chair Karen Kahn is not here this evening, but I did want to let everybody know and recognize her. She has been she is an honoree for the International Forest of Friendship, which is a living, growing memorial of the world history of aviation and aerospace. It's in Kansas, and it includes, it started in the mid-1970s, and includes such honorees as Amelia Earhart, Charles Lindbergh, Gina Yeager, the Wright brothers, Sally Ride, Chuck Yeager, and on and on. And so it's very much an honor for her to be recognized, and I just wanted to bring it to your attention.
That's great.
And I'm sorry she's not here to hear that.
Well, on other notices, that the Lease Review Subcommittee met on Thursday, May 14th, 2009 at the Administration Building, 601 Firestone Road. And that on Wednesday, May 14th at 4 p.m., the Airport Commission Secretary duly posted this agenda on the bulletin board at the Airport Administration. Okay, the consent calendar. And we will waive the reading of all the titles, I believe. And do we have any discussion on the consent calendar? Do I have a motion?
Hearing that, I will make a motion that we accept it as presented.
1 second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The consent calendar carries. And that brings us to the liaison reports. And do we have a report from our City of Goleta liaison?
I have no report to make. I'm just here to listen. We're working on our budget like everybody else.
Okay, thank you, sir.
It's in a state of depression.
Yeah. And our City of Santa Barbara liaison is not present. Okay. Commission matters, the annual City Advisory Group workshop, and we had at least one attendee who is going to give us an oral report on that.
Yes, I wanted to thank the mayor and the city council for offering the workshop. They had really good attendance, and must have been 50-plus people. I'm assuming they were all the new commissioners and myself. And there were 3 topics that were discussed. The budget was the main focus because of what was going on, and the Ralph M. Brown Act and Robert's Rules of Order. I'll skip ahead. The Ralph M. Brown Act came toward the end, but it's probably a good thing to mention now because we had a person discussing public discussion, and part of that act says that we can't comment on what you bring up. So just so you know that we are interested, but
I understand.
okay. So the rule says that we can't do that. It also discussed conducting business in the light of day, and he discussed something that's come up with a lot of groups, the use of email. The idea, I think, is ruled on the intent of what the email might be. If you were circulating email to sway a vote or push a personal agenda, then that's not allowed. So he was making that point. But the main focus of the workshop was the budget. He discussed that revenues are down, obviously. He says it's never been this bad as he's seen it, and they're projecting out for about 2 years that it's going to be a bad thing. The one number that stuck in my mind was the possibility of up to 43 staff positions citywide possibly being affected and cut over those 2 years, which is something that nobody would like to see. The revenues are down. The bed tax was down about 10% below projected. And I'm sorry I didn't take notes during the workshop, so this is coming off the top of my head. But that indicates that people aren't in the hotels as much as they should be, or we would like them to be. And that was pretty much the gist of it. Everybody, all the departments were asked to look at their budgets and scale back, see where they could make adjustments and cuts. The police and fire budgets were asked to reduce less than other departments because of critical need for safety. And so that's kind of it in a nutshell. Are there any questions?
Okay, thank you. And administrative reports. It's been recommended that we receive a presentation on the Airport Ambassador Program.
Okay. Well, in April, we launched our Airport Ambassador Program to actually in anticipation of the terminal project, and with a lot of changes coming with construction, and we just started a big change in terms of parking over the terminal, that the ambassadors would be available to assist answering questions and point people in the right direction. So this evening, our Rebecca Fribley, who's our airport property management specialist, and as other duties as assigned, she became the ambassador liaison. I don't know what else to call her. But she's done a great job putting together the program, and I'd like her to tell you about it.
Good evening. This program arose primarily because in the past, when we did renovations at the terminal, the ADA project, for example, we had actually hired some hourly people to function as ambassadors, and they were extremely well received and made the project go a lot smoother. So when we came into this transition period, we felt that we wanted to do that again, but hiring people in this economic climate becomes a little bit problematic. So we decided to try what a number of other airports have done very successfully and try a volunteer program. We started out by looking at the things that we wanted the ambassadors to be able to do, primarily to create a warm and friendly atmosphere at the terminal, to represent the city, help reduce the stress of the passengers, give accurate directions, and also be able to receive comments from the public and relay them to the airport so that we can serve the public in a better manner. So we started out by recruiting on our website, volunteermatch.com, RSVP, which is the Volunteer Center for Retired Volunteers. We put out flyers in senior housing projects and also at the recreation center and other centers where people gather. And we offered programs to the community for such organizations as newcomers and got some very good response. So we did presentations essentially about the terminal program and then told about our program and asked if anyone would be interested in volunteering. As perks for the people who are volunteering, we came up with allowing them to park free in the long-term lot number 2 when they travel on private business. They also receive a discount at the restaurant at the terminal and the Elephant Bar. And then we came up with a uniform, which is these navy blue blazers that you see over here behind Tracy with the airport logo on them, and each ambassador receives their own blazer.
Could he model that for us?
In March, we did an orientation session at the administration building here and provided lunch for our volunteers. And we had presentations done on the terminal project by Karen and Hazel, and we had the airlines represented. They talked about such things as lost luggage and, you know, why there isn't anybody at the counter when you first come into the building and some of those things that come up. The TSA gave a presentation about the regulations and screening processes. Patrol gave a presentation on how you distinguish between a traffic unit and a patrol officer and what their different roles are at the terminal and how they make things happen better. Our parking company, AMPCO, gave a presentation on the parking lots and how they function. And then we included a tour of the terminal site. The ambassadors were also given individual notebooks like the ones that you have on your table so that they have reference materials. If they want to look something up at some time, they have a binder there. The binders are also at their locations in the terminal building, and they're updated periodically, whenever a question comes up that we feel needs to be addressed, we update the information and give it to them. They're currently working 7 days a week in 3-hour shifts, starting at 7 a.m. and ending at 9 p.m. We currently have a group of 12, our beta test group that started in April, and we will be doing a new recruitment shortly. Our ambassadors that have started at the terminal are having a good time. They report that they really enjoy what they're doing. And we've gotten some really nice testimonials from airplane personnel, the airline industry. The TSA likes to have them there because they end up being able to serve the passengers and get some of those questions away from the airline counters and other kinds of personnel. Interestingly enough, of the volunteers that we have in our first group, a number of them are former airline hostesses, and some of them are in the tour industry or were in the tourist industry either as a travel agent or as a tour guide. So I guess this is one of those industries that people just can't stay away from. We have 2 locations, 2 kiosks that we set up for the ambassadors, one inside in the main lobby and one outside in the former SkyCap location. And they are free to wander around. We don't want them stuck in that particular location, but they walk around both inside and outside and assist people as needed. We asked a couple of our ambassadors if they would provide us with some anecdotes about the kinds of experiences that they've had so far. And one of our ambassadors actually was able to be of great assistance when we had a medical emergency at the terminal. We had a gentleman that suffered a heart attack and had a nurse traveling with him, so he was being attended to immediately, but of course you always have a group of spectators that gathers, and we had a plane that was unloading in that area, and she screened the passenger and was able to direct the deplaning passengers away from him and over to the baggage claim area very successfully, and it was extremely helpful. We had another ambassador that sent me this little story. One of her favorite conversations had to do with a couple from the East Coast who asked about shuttle services to downtown hotels, as their son was getting married in August and lots of relatives would be flying to Santa Barbara. They discussed that her son and the ambassador's daughter were getting married on the same weekend. It turned out they live in a town 15 miles from where our ambassador grew up, and she's a nurse in the hospital where our ambassador was born. And on top of that,
oh my gosh,
our ambassador's family owns the newspaper in the town that she lives in. So she said, you know, it's really a small world. Our ambassadors, by and large, have, you know, said that they really enjoy meeting the people. They love doing the job. They've been extremely helpful to the airport and to the city in putting a warmer, more positive face on traffic through the airport. So our next step is going to be to work with City TV to develop a training video based on the original orientation program so that we can orient smaller groups of people as they join. And we'll be doing a new recruiting very shortly. And we're also having our ambassadors attend the terminal update meetings for the airport terminal project. We had one today and invited them to come so that their information will be current and up to date. So we're very, very positive about the program and looking forward to working with even more people.
Well, great. Thank you for that report. It sounds like an excellent program, real benefit to the airport. And I know traveling, when I've encountered ambassadors, it's been very welcome to have that help there.
Rebecca, I have a question for you. The next time there's an orientation or you get a new group, I'd like the opportunity to come in and meet them also, just to thank them, and so that they get to know us. Maybe some other people here would like to go and meet them. I think that would be kind of a nice thing to do for them.
Okay, and we're planning actually on having probably little quarterly meetings just so the ambassadors can get together since they work different shifts. It's nice for them to know each other and know who's in the group. And probably semi-annually we'll be having some sort of a recognition luncheon for them because we really do appreciate their efforts. So if any of the members of Airport Commission are interested in attending the recognition luncheon, we'd be more than happy to have you.
I'd like to do that. Yeah? Okay.
And I must say, not only the airline industry and TSA appreciating what they do, they love having the ambassadors there. It really takes some of the heat off of them when they're trying to do their jobs and have someone else that's able to answer questions in a friendly way.
Comment? Takes us to the director's report.
Okay. Well, our passenger count for April was down 9.1% compared to April of last year, and year-to-date we're down 12.7% for the same period as last year. It comes as really no surprise. I mean, many airports were seeing those kinds of dips in passenger use last year, and we're just kind of catching up with the economy. The terminal, I wanted to speak just a moment about the terminal project because the temporary improvement phase has started, and our short-term lot on Monday, we put up a sign that told people they couldn't park there. And if you look in the short-term lot, there's piles of dirt and things being ripped out. And unfortunately, as things kind of happen, we also expected our pay-on-foot equipment to start operation on Monday. Well, that didn't happen. The parking operator, they started putting the system together over the weekend, and Sunday night at midnight, it did not work. Still does not work. So that meant that the employees over at the parking lot had to stand at the entrance helping people kind of get around the situation. And we have short-term parkers now that can come into the new temporary short-term lot that's at the western end of the existing long-term lot, if I haven't confused you. But they have to exit out the long-term lot because there's no pay mechanism for them until this pay-on-foot equipment gets up and running. So it's a little awkward, and I'm sure we've inconvenienced more than a few people, but eventually it will smooth out. They will also on June 1st start putting up some of the fencing around, which will be around the site where the new building will be built, and short-term will be totally fenced in, and then start the reconfiguration of the loop road for the construction period, so it'll become a hairpin, if you recall. So we'll have a lot of changes that will happen between now and, say, mid-June, but as soon as the construction fence is put up and the road's changed and the parking's changed, we should see things settle down a little bit because the main construction then will be taking place behind a fence and shouldn't inconvenience, or it'll be that way for the next couple of years during construction. So it's been interesting. The parking operator, AMCO, has been handing out flyers to passengers about the new pay-on-foot equipment, as well as the different changes in the parking lot. We have information on our website. We put out public service announcements. Our City TV for Channel 18 is doing a program on demonstrating how to use the pay-on-foot machines. And we're using as many different venues of media to get the word out. A large portion of our passengers are repeat customers. They travel a lot. Once they get the hang of it, I think they will be okay. It'll be working with the smaller number of people that don't travel very often or travel out of this airport very often, and helping them navigate the changes. But hopefully, once we get underway, we'll make it as smooth as we can for the passenger. I also wanted to point out that this Thursday, which is tomorrow, at 2 o'clock, is the dedication for our World War II memorial, which is in the Vista Point or observation area near the east end of the long-term parking lot. Of course, that's adding to some of the confusion that's going on with parking. Parking for the event will be in the long-term parking lot, so that's the part that's adding to the confusion. But once the ceremony is over, those parking spaces will free up and we won't have that. I'd like to share with you the program for the, if anybody wants it, for tomorrow's ceremony.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy.
I think it's going to be very nice. We've gotten many contacts and emails from
pretty neat.
either Marines who served here during World War II or families of those Marines or families of the local aviators that died during World War II, for which our streets are named. And I think the memorial itself is very beautiful. So anyway, I encourage anybody to come who is available to come. And this is the program for tomorrow.
Great.
Let's see. Our self-serve fueling project, the MAG Aviation, who is the company that will be constructing and then operating the self-serve fuel station, is getting their designs together and construction documents and getting prepared to go through the city's permitting process. And on a parallel track, we're also going through the Coastal Commission to correct the zoning error that is in the location where the self-serve fuel facility will go. So we're on our way. It's chugging along, however slowly, and so we should see the Coastal Commission approval within the next several months, and in the meantime the MAG Aviation can continue their design and the approval process. Let's see, I talked about the temporary improvements at our rental car joint use facility on Love Place on the north side of Hollister. If you have a chance, drive by there. It's across from the recycling center. They're just now starting to put the solar panels on the structure. It's kind of a shade structure in the parking storage area, and the building is going up and it's coming along quite nicely, and that should be done this summer. So that's a good thing. So that's about all
I have a
had to-
question.
Uh-huh.
On the fuel farm, once they get all the permits, how long will it take them to?
I don't think it will take very long. They may have some footings or foundations or to construct, but the tank itself will be above ground and pretty much an off-the-shelf.
So the target is this year?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's nothing like when the FBOs built their
Yeah, the fuel
farms.
farms, that's why I was
It's
asking
much,
if it was.
much simpler.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Drop it off the truck.
Not quite.
I've heard that. Isn't quite how it happens. So any other questions on the director's
I
report?
asked- I might have missed it, but did they have a date for when they might be getting this parking thing working?
No, I don't have
that-
a date. The parking manager here is in contact with her company, and we haven't gotten a date. We've been pushing them several times a day to hurry up and let us know what's happening. So in the meantime, she's providing her employees to provide the service manually, but it's not
It's not as efficient that way.
efficient. It's not a pretty picture, but it's sort of working.
But it's their staff handling it.
Yes, not our staff. Yeah.
Can we assume that the airport ambassadors will have thorough training on how to use the new system once it's in
Yes,
place?
we went through quite a discussion of that today.
Great. I was curious on the new website development, the Fly SBA 2.0 website.
2.0. It's coming along. We're, I think next month for commission we'll have it'll be in a state where we can make a presentation to you and actually show it to you live. And then I think Terry Gibson, who's in charge of that project, wants to do 2 or 3 weeks of having it online, but not really advertising the fact that it's out there, just to kind of work out any quirks that it might have. And but it looks to me like, from what I've seen so far, that it's going to be very powerful in terms of what we can do with it, as well as user friendly, which was one of our goals. So.
We'd had a report that indicated that the terminal construction bond was expected to have been issued. I think that's the 20th.
It hasn't been. I think right now they're looking at the first week in June. I know that the financial team is putting together all the documentation for it, and they're, kind of doing the last dotting of I's and correcting and that kind of thing. So they're that close.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing no further questions, do we have a motion for adjournment?
Make a motion that we adjourn.